Odyssey Jones removed from the internal roster at WWE. Has his short-lived time on the main roster come to an end already? We're going to discuss this and everything else from the last 2 weeks in Black Wrestling. Stay tuned. This is WrstlXtra.
Yo, this is WrstlXtra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate. Always joined by my trios team, the Real House of Black, Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will, Yeet. And of course, the omnipresent man, say his name, he will appear, Gerard Bonner. I'm going to start with this. Odyssey, in the Oxford Dictionary, means...
I was literally going to do this.
Yeah, exactly. A long wandering or voyage usually marked by many changes of fortune. If anyone's name fitted them in wrestling ever, it is Odyssey Jones. It's crazy. Born Amari Palmer, known to us as Odyssey Jones. We know that he started with WWE at the NXT Performance Center in February 2019. Was announced as a Raw superstar, was drafted to Raw 2 years ago, I believe. And it took him 2 years to make his Raw debut. And it has taken just 4 weeks for now to him being removed from WWE's roster page. All sorts of theories, conspiracies, and whatnot around all of this. We found out, I believe it was yesterday afternoon, someone noticed and reported. And it was also mentioned about an hour or two before Raw went on air yesterday, that he also wasn't there, and he wasn't on the show the previous week as well. We saw Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods last week, no mention of Odyssey. We saw Kofi Kingston on yesterday's Raw, no mention of Odyssey. Gerard, we come to you as the all-knowing, all-seeing, all-knowing professor that you are. Can you in any way make any sense of any of this or any of the theories and different things that we've heard over the last 24 hours concerning Odyssey Jones and WWE?
So this is interesting on a lot of fronts. Normally, when we hear this kind of news, we hear that they've been merely removed from the internal roster. But what was wild about this is that he was taken off of the website in the active roster page, which is very, very odd. Given, just the last couple of weeks. I mean, you had that 1 week where he came in right after SummerSlam, made the save, held both members of AOP in his arms. That thing, had millions of views. Like, it was a thing. And then all of a sudden, it seems like he's inserted into the New Day. And this is wild. And it looks like this could be the cause of, potentially a heel turn for Xavier Woods. And then say his name and he disappears. And I don't know how you make a 400-pound man disappear like this, but it's happened. And, so I initially, when I saw this, I thought clearly there's a glitch on the website. Somebody made a mistake in programming and they'll fix this, because certainly with a very hot storyline, he'll show up on Raw. That didn't happen. And it's never a good moment when there's no mention of you. Last night, Bronson Reed was supposed to be on the show. He contracted COVID, but you didn't know because he was still mentioned on the show. We've seen it where people are supposed to be there, something happens, but they're still alive and mentioned very much in these stories. Not the case at all, which then makes me wonder, and I'm careful about this because, you don't want to get into a lot of conjecture, But what on earth did he do? Or what on earth happened that would cause this man to finally be on TV and be removed this fast with his name mentioned nor likeness showing up on a Raw after a PLE, no less? This is interesting. It's very interesting, and there's definitely a story here. And I know there are wrestling fans who all want to go, oh, it's part of a storyline. At what point will we learn that the WWE and AEW rarely use their website in terms of roster listing as part of a whole storyline? There's something else going on here, and I feel like time will tell before we eventually find out.
So as Gerard just said, you know, what has he done? What has happened? Mex, in any way, do you feel it's something that Odyssey has done himself, or just a decision made within the WWE?
It's a weird one. I personally, I don't even necessarily want to jump to the conclusion of he's been released or anything like that, because we don't know. Those that do the research and do the deep diving and digging around these stories haven't confirmed, you know, yet as well. They don't know what that situation's been about. Maybe it's more of a mutual decision. And I only say that because more so than his 4 weeks on the roster, he's been very active with WWE's recruitment process of the nil athletes and doing that side of things with them, the office stuff, if you will. He's been very active on that side of the business. So maybe this is a thing where it's like, right, he's still in the company, but maybe he might have went to them and said, I don't fancy this. I like what I do and helping, you know, bring and recruit the next generation. Maybe that's where he sees himself. It sounds weird, like, you know, why would you kind of not take the opportunity now? You've waited 2 years for it, if that is the case. But I'm just trying to look at the other possibilities that it hasn't been said he's been released from the company, but he's not on the roster page or whatever. So is he still in the company but maybe doing something else? Very weird for this amount of time to elapse, 4 weeks of TV and then seemingly not there anymore. But I don't know. I think we just have to kind of wait for more information. If it was a release, I think they would have been very to the point. It's a release, you know, as they have been. But it seems like there is maybe something else here, not just a straight up release.
I will say this one other thing. I just did a little digging. This may or may not mean a single thing, but he's not posted anything on the socials since August 26th on Twitter or Instagram. So that's about a week. He's been silent for a week. That could mean something.
Mm-hmm.
What? We'll have to wait and find out.
Yeah, you know, there are so many different possibilities. You know, as wrestling fans, the general community of wrestling fans usually jump to a lot of the time the extreme conclusion. You know, it could, you know, whether that be he's done something wrong, you know, or the company just decided to let him go, and you know they've been, you know, evil in their decision, just let him go, and ruthless in that respect. But you know, with there being him being quiet for a week on Instagram, it could be a personal reason. There could be some kind of family issues or whatever else that has, you know, made the decision to disappear, or as Mick said, possibly you know, a mutual agreement between the WWE and himself. It's a very, very strange scenario. You know, we've seen the likes of a Bobby Lashley and MVP kind of moved off the internal, which kind of, we had an idea that their contracts were gonna be up. So it made sense. We could make sense of it. They eventually left the company, but for it to be as sudden as it has, and it be the main website as well, there's definitely something going on, but it's very difficult to work out what it is. I think it's one of those situations where we kind of just have to wait and see. All sorts of scenarios and whatnot can be worked out and brought up, but until we get full confirmation, we just don't know. One of the funnier things that the wrestling community have said is that it had something to do with Xavier Woods, whether that be kayfabe or real. People were talking about all sorts of things, but Xavier Woods himself has tweeted that he has nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know whether that could possibly be telling in a way of, him kind of mentioning it. Is that a good thing, bad thing? Is he playing up to something? Does that kind of show us that there's reality in it, or he's messing about with some kind of storyline? Is there still a possibility that there's some kind of storyline, kayfabe storyline to this whole thing?
I would say it would be delicate, but it could be done. We're entering this, or we have entered this new way of how WWE choose to tell their stories. So, we're seeing, I guess, not as far as this, but, the whole Brooks Jensen kind of story in NXT, where someone seemingly looked like he had left the company. Definitely, like very early on, it looked like, yeah, he's not here anymore in NXT. And then you could see it was a whole ruse and into a story. So this would be like a step forward, a step further on that, taking him off the roster page and stuff like that. And then, playing into it a bit. And if it was a case where Xavier Woods, it did turn out that he was behind this or something, it's major heat sort of thing. So it could be story. I'll ask you guys a question because I actually missed this on Raw when I was watching this morning. What was Kofi Kingston saying to Adam Page? Did it have anything? Adam Pearce. Did it have anything to do with this?
It was just he was just talking about the tag team division. Talking about how the Judgment Day haven't defended their titles in 2 months. That was it. So he was just kind of trying to, trying to pitch to Pierce that him and Xavier should have a match against the Judgment Day. So I think even in that, as I said, there's been no mention of Odyssey, even though it was Kofi that brought him in. It was always him with Kofi and whatnot. So for him for Kofi to be pitching to Adam Pearce, I almost said Adam Page as well. For him to be, to pitch into Adam Pearce for a tag team match. With no mention of Odyssey whatsoever, I think that in itself is telling.
You there? You just
there
about.
There we go. There we go.
I was just saying, I think that in itself is telling that they've mentioned this whole tag team thing, not mentioned Odyssey at all. Again, it just goes towards this whole thing of him just not being mentioned in any way, shape, or form. To me, that shows that's the indication that it's not story. I don't see how we were getting to any kind of story. And it also just wouldn't make sense in terms of what was happening with Odyssey when he was on TV.
Yeah, that's true. I think I think more so maybe he's still in the company, but doing something else maybe, which in itself is a story as to why you don't want to wrestle anymore if that is the case. But yeah, well, I guess we'll wait for confirmation on what has actually happened here.
Yeah, I guess this is a story of time. Time will tell, and we just have to kind of just wait and see. There's no conclusions we can draw, but I believe the first part of it, the obvious part, is that at this very moment he's just not an active wrestler. Whether he comes back or not, whether he's gone completely, whether he's got a different role in the company, we'll have to wait and see. But I think it's quite obvious that at this very moment in time, he's definitely not an active wrestler. And we just have to wait and see. Moving along a little bit, of course, the weekend was filled, jam-packed with wrestling. But let's turn our attention to the week before that, because we have not been here for about 2 weeks. Myself and Mex had the privilege of being at AEW All In Wembley, London. Great show, good show. The biggest, of course, the biggest news from the show, for us at least, very specifically, is Swerve Strickland losing his AEW World Heavyweight Championship to the American Dragon, that is Bryan Danielson. I think we all expect it to happen. We predicted it, weeks before and all the rest of it. But Mex, in terms of being there, being a part of the show, and the outcome, how do you feel about Swerve in the match, and even from the outcome, what happens next with Swerve?
Yeah, I felt the match was very good. It felt like a proper main event, lots of emotion, big title on the line. The crowd were brilliant for it, gave all the energy to the wrestlers. Swerve played the villain in this. This is where I think he operates best. Like, the babyface stuff just isn't convincing enough for me. He's just so much of a good heel. And he drops the title, and it wasn't necessarily at the hands of Hangman, but they've kind of taken that direction now. Him and Hangman are having a cage match at All Out this weekend. I think All Out is. So yeah, that would be good. They kept him somewhat strong in defeat, even with him tapping out. They said this is the first time he's tapped out to anyone in AEW, which is a great stat as well. Yeah, now it's to kind of continue the blood feud he's been having with Hangman this weekend on the pay-per-view. So yeah, a really strong showing for Swerve. And as I'm sure we'll talk about, before he stepped out at Wembley earlier on in the day, he penned a brand new lucrative contract. So yeah, I think that's really good showing. Just all round, the entire title reign has been pretty good. Notched up quite a lot of defenses in 6 months of having the title, something like that. And I was very kind of critical, I know, at first, saying that 4 title defenses?
No, 4 months.
Oh yeah, he didn't win it at Revolution, did he? 4 months. So yeah, it's even more impressive then, with the amount of title defenses he had and in that time. And then yeah, I was quite critical on the fact that I didn't feel like they were positioning him as the top boy in the company. You've got the likes of Ospreay and all of these people that were shining at the time. But at the end of it, I felt like this is someone that has definitely been elevated over the past year or so, not just when he was champion. And I can see some of the good stuff that he's been doing. And he very much is, the top boy of this company, someone that they can rely on. So, yeah, it's been very productive and very good to see Swerve get to this position. And, yeah, we'll wonder if we see him back here again one day.
In the words of Trick Williams, let's talk about it. This contract that he signed before All In, a few hours before it was shown on the All In pre-show, that he signed a new contract. Mex, just give us kind of like a roundabout idea as to what this contract is and just how significant it feels in terms of what's been reported about this contract.
what's been reported about this contract is that it's a massive contract and that he's being paid in the realms of maybe what an Okada and people of that ilk are being paid in the company. I think they said Okada. I think Mercedes Moné was mentioned as well. And they've already made a song and dance about, you know, how much Mercedes Moné gets paid, the highest paid woman in the industry. So he must be pretty much up there, you would assume, well over $1 million per year. But I don't know the finer details in terms of the figures. But I guess the debate that has come out since then is that basically giving him a big contract, the impending contract that AEW have either offered Daniel Garcia, maybe he hasn't signed it yet, or maybe hasn't been an offer, but maybe what's being talked about, the figure they may give Garcia, is that these sums are too big for the people that are being given these offers, that it's going to skew the landscape, and that it just sounds like they want to hold down certain people in certain brackets. Now, I think it was Wrestling Observer that reported that this is how WWE felt. Since then, again, the likes of Fightful have went hunting on this story and haven't seen anything that WWE said anything like that. But yeah, if Tony wants to splash his money on what I would say are well-deserved talents, I don't know why anyone else has got a problem with that. With the whole skewing of the market, that being a worry, but yeah, I just don't understand why that's WWE's issue per se.
Yeah, Gerard, just in what way does this change the landscape? What does it mean? What does it mean for the likes of Swerve Strickland, possibly Daniel Garcia, who, you know, for a good few weeks was linked with going to WWE? What do these types of contracts, if it is true, mean in terms of the landscape, and are AEW trying to prove a point in some way?
Well, I'm not sure who they'd be trying to prove a point to. You know, millionaires don't compete with billionaires. Like that just doesn't happen. But bigger than that, I think AEW is at a phase right now where it is time to reward the talents that have been faithful to them, that have been true to them, that have put butts in seats, that have helped to carry this company. I don't think when the company was created, they imagined a world without a Cody Rhodes, that they imagined a world without a Kenny Omega being active. And so they've had to, and honestly, a world where the Young Bucks are taking a back seat in terms of tag team wrestling. Sure, they're the tag team champions, but they've not been active. So when your building blocks of the company are not there, who are the people that step up? And you could make the argument that a Swerve Strickland has really become the kind of star he believed he could be, and many others believed he could be, given this opportunity that he had, from coming in, becoming a tag team champion, becoming incredibly popular with Prince Nana, doing the work, crushing things in tournaments, finally winning the championship, and by the end of his title reign, looking more like a champion than in the beginning. How can you not reward that? I think it's a problem if you don't reward that. So absolutely, I will say Tony Khan did the right thing if indeed he offered him a lucrative contract. That's the right thing to do. In any field of work, if you've been putting in the work, you've been doing the numbers, you've made the company better, when it's time for your evaluation, you want a raise. And he got a raise. I don't see a problem with that. In terms of what it does to the landscape, think about this. In baseball and basketball here in the United States, we've been seeing a lot of, and even American football, you've got a lot of individual contracts that, you know, the numbers just keep getting larger and larger and larger. Whether you deem the player to be a subpar player or not, the industry just moves in that particular way. I don't expect contracts to get smaller. You know, I don't think anybody, particularly when wrestling's in a boom the way wrestling is, how would contracts get smaller? particularly if you've done the work. So that argument about it's skewing the industry, I don't think that's an accurate argument at all, given, everybody's prospering right now. Everybody's doing well. So reward people appropriately. And I think that's the best way to reward them is in their contract.
And I think as well, it's a case of, we saw, we hear that Mercedes Moné has been given a lucrative contract when she signed with AEW as well. Of course, the most talked about female wrestler over the last 3 or 4 years. It made sense in that respect alone. The numbers that she did when she first appeared for New Japan, and before even the end of that same night on her first appearance, she saw that the next show she was going to be on. And that was when only her match was mentioned. Swerve has been doing the work. He's been the most popular guy for the last few months. It makes sense for him to be on a very similar level to an Okada, Will Ospreay, and the like as well. So it just makes sense. But Mex, what do you think this means for Swerve? Because as some of maybe some of the pessimistic fans out there who will say his run wasn't the greatest. As soon as he loses, he's gonna be pushed to the back and all sorts. Does this contract mean the complete opposite, or could there still be a possibility of that happening?
So I just asked this question, or this thing that Ches has put here. Big up Ches Nasty. He says Tony Khan wouldn't have paid Swerve so much if he didn't think he was worth it and couldn't afford it. Plus, why is WWE pocket watching and they're the first ones to flaunt how much their gates make? So again, it hasn't actually been proven that WWE said this. That's just what's being reported, and no one else can kind of back this up or corroborate that story. Sorry, your question about Swerve, what was it again?
Does this contract mean that now Swerve is going to remain in this, top of the card space, or is there still a possibility that he kind of, goes to the back of the line, so to speak?
The thing with AEW, it's because of the amount of great talent in very similar positions. Like, I think all it guarantees is his TV time. The likes of Okada, again, probably one of the biggest earners in AEW. We can see what he's doing. He isn't at the top of the card, but he's a champion and, is busy on TV in one way or the other every week. And I think that's the very minimum of what that money guarantees. Of course, we want it to guarantee more than just mid-card runs and things of that nature. We want it to be meaningful stories, top championships and stuff like that. But at the very minimum, that money is going to guarantee that if we're paying him X, he has to be on TV every week, no matter what he's doing. And I think even just from a wrestler standpoint, being used, being put in stories, hopefully, that's like the minimum that they want, that they ask. Of course, then they'll say, I want to carry the company, give me the top title, etc., etc. But the minimum is just being on TV, and I think that's what that money guarantees. So, it's a good place for him to kind of, he's raised his value. Now they know that, we're paying him this kind of money. We can't afford to misuse him or, leave him off TV or whatever. But yeah, I think he'll circle back around to the championship anyway. I think we had all said that, with Danielson winning it, he'll probably have a feud with Hangman, which is what we're seeing now. And then on Danielson's way out, he'll probably pick up the title again. Swerve, that is. He'll probably pick up the title again. Something within me is getting a bit scared that I don't know if it's going to be Swerve ascending to that title again or Darby now ascending to that title. I guess it's a conversation for another time. But yeah, like we're saying, Swerve will still be in and around it, I think. Is he frozen?
I think he's frozen.
Oh man, but yeah.
Oh man. Well, yeah. So I oh, go ahead. He's back. Cool.
You back?
I think I am.
Okay.
We also saw the debut of Ricochet. And of course, that question's been asked about Ricochet. Why did he leave WWE? He was on TV all the time and whatnot. In a very recent interview, something that he mentioned was about creativity in the ring, some of the stuff that he wanted to do that he wasn't able to do, and things of that nature. Now, I think it's quite obvious that that is why he chose AEW. It's only been 2 weeks. He appeared in the gauntlet match and, of course, has had his debut singles match. But, Gerard, do you think, in any way, have you seen any kind of change in Ricochet's output, or is it still kind of time will tell?
I definitely think it's time will tell. My concern, as I've stated before, when it comes to Ricochet is in WWE, he was one of one. In AEW, he is one of many, you know. So between a Sammy Guevara, hologram, all of Top Flight, Leo Rush, like we could rattle off easily 10 names who do half the things that Ricochet does. So I hate to make this analogy, but it's like becoming a new burger spot in America. Okay, well, if you've got Burger King, we've got McDonald's, we've got Wendy's, you know, you've got Five Guys, you've got all these what makes you different? It's not, well, we were the first to make the burger. That's not enough at this point. So I think Ricochet, in a land that, you know, doesn't necessarily thrive, you know, you don't live and die on the promo per se in an AEW, although it's really a nice thing to have. All of the action, there are tons of people who are still doing this. And who that audience has seen do it regularly for the last 5 years. So Ricochet coming in, I don't know. And I honestly, thinking about this, probably the only person, there are 2 people now that I can think of that the AEW universe, oh, maybe 3. Okay, we'll go with 3. 3 people who were in the WWE that have come over to AEW that have really been presented better than they were in WWE. That would be Jon Moxley, Swerve Strickland, and Athena. I can't say that about everybody else. And the Athena piece is just because she's been a world champion for over 600 days, right? Not because we're seeing her a ton on TV. But if you look at a Claudio, you know, quite frankly, even if you look at a Bryan Danielson, you know, here it is. Bryan Danielson has to say, I'm about to retire before he becomes the world champion. You know, I can't say that Mercedes is better, has had a better run in AEW than she did in WWE. Definitely can't say that about Saraya. Maybe I can add Toni Storm to that list. So that's 4, okay? Because what Toni Storm has done has certainly been significant. 4 out of the many names who have come from the WWE into AEW. I want Ricochet to be able to do better. I honestly don't know what do better looks like for Ricochet. Is it, you know, I get to be in the ring and have more control over my matches? If that's do better for him, then cool. But if it's equating to championships, I don't see that happening. And I'm not trying to be, you know, a Debbie Downer by no means. It's just that when you have people in that company where that is the norm, it's not. Ricochet thrives where he's the exception. He is not the exception in AEW.
Interesting. Mex, do you think it's too early to ask this question, but do you think he made a wrong decision?
From what he has said as to what he wants to go there and achieve, no, he hasn't. However, like Gerard is saying, it's like you're now gonna fit in with the crowd more so than stand out. When he came out at All In, he had pyro. I thought, okay, that's an improvement on his presentation, because we know pyro's not it's not money spent on everybody. It's only for the big boys to get pyro and the big girls pyro. It's not for everyone. I can't remember if he had pyro with his entrance for the Carl Fletcher match, but that was for me like a strike one. He came out and had a match with Carl Fletcher. Carl Fletcher's excellent, but you are not teaching me anything new about Ricochet, because yes, this is where the best wrestle, but I knew he could do that. I didn't see anything in the match which showed the creativity that has now, you know, been unchained, that you can now use. I didn't see anything. You had an opportunity to, even if some want to call it petty, send him out there and cut a promo, not necessarily a promo about WWE, but a promo. Let them, you know, like Will did very quickly, and it was, you know, vastly reported. Then even you, Will, could talk like that. Send Ricochet out on the first night and let him cut a promo and show the world, oh, this guy can talk. And okay, now all of a sudden we're interested because this is something we haven't seen before or as much. Then you could bring the matches. The matches are going to be there. The matches are going to come. He could have had a match after the promo, but on that night that you showed him to the world in your TV capacity, we learned nothing. We learned absolutely nothing new about this Ricochet. And even to the point where I feel like he was going to do something post-match, and then Will came out, and then that whole drama happened where Will got attacked by Pat. Then he went to back Will. So it's like he even got silenced to a degree. Like, you have to show me, like, send him out with pyro, send him out to cut a promo, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking, new version of Ricochet. Something's happening here. At the very least, you just told me what I knew about him already, and it right now it just shows, okay, well, this is what it's gonna be. This is what it's gonna be. I can't necessarily expect much more. I'll just enjoy it for what it is, which is a shame. Of course, they could always turn around this week, do something or whatever the case is different, but I just feel like straight out of the gate, that should have been almost like the mission statement. Like, let's start changing the perception of this guy on North American TV. But they just gave us what we knew that we could expect from Ricochet and Carl Fletcher, a fantastic match. But that's it.
This is very true. Moving away from AEW, we turn our attentions to Bash in Berlin, which happened on Saturday in Berlin. Of course, it's in the name, in Germany. But we also saw that Jade and Bianca recaptured the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. There are many that said, I believe one of us, probably even all three of us, also said that it was probably too early for them to lose the Tag Team Championships when they did. In the space of time that they haven't been champions, do you feel now that it was a good decision, or it didn't really make much difference? Has your perception changed about the women's tag team division, Gerard?
It has. I think, you know, Alba Fire, Isla Dawn were a great tag team as the NXT tag team champions. They never really got a fair shake on the main roster. I think this decision was a decision that actually made the division better. We got to see a great tag team in Alba Fire and Isla Dawn really get some shine. We got to see them beat several tag teams in the division. We got to see them defend in NXT, which is what that women's tag title is supposed to do. You know, they went on all three brands, you know, and now in the process, we have verifiable women's tag teams who are now competing for these championships, whether it is Damage Control or the Pure Fusion Collective, or now they're competing. You had Jade and Bianca. So now we've got 4 tag teams potentially that are in the hunt for this women's tag team titles. That's far better than the makeshift teams that were happening. That's better than, just not having anybody in that particular space. So I think also putting Jade and Bianca in that space as contenders, they never really had to fight to become #1 contenders, since they still were, champions that had never gotten their rematch, which is good. I think if anything, it allowed those other teams, and even the match itself, which I thought was a great match at Bash in Berlin, it challenged Bianca and Jade. And as much as Bianca and Jade are superheroes, there have to be other teams that can at least look like they have a fighting chance against them. So I think that this title run that, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn had gave the division the opportunity to attempt to rise to what we know Jade and Bianca can be. So giving Jade and Bianca the titles now, we know that there are some opportunities in terms of tag teams that would make for interesting matches. This damage control potential of Io and Kyrie, sign me up for that. I'm here for that. A rematch with Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, I'm here for that. So I think this is helping to build the division in a larger space. And believe it or not, during that time where Jade and Bianca didn't have the championships, they still looked incredibly strong. Nothing was going to stop them from looking like superstars and looking unbeatable. So I think it worked. I do think it worked. And I think it's interesting that they only seem to win tag team titles on foreign soil. I'm not mad at that either. They're just worldwide superstars. So I'm good with that. It was a good moment for sure.
Yeah, I think I completely agree in terms of the way it's worked out. I was very skeptical at first. It kind of just felt as though it was just this whole thing of, the Scottish ladies winning the championships on Scottish soil, and they were going to drop it within a week or two, maybe. But I think what definitely happened was the rise of other tag teams. And I think it was cleverly done in the sense where these other tag teams were able to contest with Fire and Dawn, which showed us how good they are, and also how good these other tag teams can be. Now, I don't think that would have been the same thing if those same tag teams faced Jade and Bianca. And that's not because Jade and Bianca are better in the ring, but I think it's all down to perception. At very few times did Jade and Bianca defend that tag team championships, and we thought the other team were going to win. And I think it would have been a very similar thing. Whereas when they were facing Fire and Dawn, we had a bit of an inkling or a feeling, should I say, that the possibility of another team winning, whether it be Damage Control or whether it be PFC, sounds a bit like a South London chicken shop. But whether they were could have possibly won as well. It made better the tag team division. And now that Jade and Bianca have them back, I think there is a feeling that either one of these teams, if they challenge them, could possibly win, even with the perception of the superheroes that Jade and Bianca are. So I think it's definitely been a very, very good thing. A quick thing I want to talk about in terms of Bash in Berlin. There was this big, massive thing about the show in itself, even before the show, and especially afterwards, that it felt very predictable. There's been an ongoing kind of thing of whether predictable is a good or bad thing and all of that. Mex, do you feel in any way that this was true? And if so, is that necessarily a bad thing?
No, I don't think predictable is a bad thing as long as the execution is still special and they still, it makes sense, sort of thing. If we just quickly run through the card, Cody and Kevin, we probably all knew Cody was retaining, but we hit the story beats of, the crisis of confidence. Could Kevin overcome and be the nasty prize fighter to do what he needs to do to win the match? They executed those particular spots well. we had the women's tag match, which we probably could have assumed that Jade and Bianca were winning, but like you said, good match. Like it was a good match. We had, I guess the Terror Twins and the Judgment Day stuff again, like sports entertainment from the beginning to end, like very fun match. So yeah, these matches, Gunther and Randy Orton, long slog, typical Randy Orton match. Gunther really selling. Like never seen Gunther in so much trouble, sort of thing. But he came out on top. So it's all about the execution. Even if you can see where it's going, as long as it's not run of the mill and then there's no thrills and they haven't really told the story within that, then there's not an issue of predictability. We can't always be blown off our seats in every single occasion, or some stories have to take a bit longer till we get those kind of moments. So I thought that my only thing is that I think the 5 matches thing is beginning to grind my gears just a bit. I feel like sometimes there's definitely opportunity for, and I literally mean 1 or 2 more. I feel like they're doing so much good things on TV that's just whittle it down to 5 for a pay-per-view at this level is sometimes harsh on some of the other rosters. They are tending to like make a weekend of it. So that's why we saw like a women's title match on the SmackDown before. It's the same crowd, it's very lively and stuff like that. But same way that they announced the likes of Randy Orton has featured on the most ever pay-per-views for WWE or whatever the stat is, like some people aren't ever gonna get those accolades or get close to them because we are only having 5 matches on cards. So yeah, it's just something that I guess is how they're moving with the new times. But I just feel same way that we're getting a lot of good stuff on the card, we're missing a lot of good stuff as well, I feel at times.
Interesting. Gerard, I saw your head working. Any response to that?
So in terms of the predictability thing, again, I think, much to echo Max's point, predictable isn't necessarily bad as long as it makes sense. And the road to get there is what's really important. And I think during some of those matches on Saturday, they really gave us the moment where we weren't sure if our predictions would have been right. That Terror Twins Judgment Day match, it definitely seemed like the Judgment Day was about to win. That definitely seemed like a thing. With all of the emphasis that was put on Orton as a 15-time champion, it felt like it could have happened there. And the idea that Jade and Bianca would win wasn't necessarily a foregone conclusion because the tag champions were doing good work, and even the Cody Kevin Owens situation was interesting because for me it was, okay, is Kevin Owens gonna do what we believe Kevin Owens to do? At some point he's got to turn on Cody, and so so there were stories within stories, and WWE executes that really well. In terms of the 5-match situation, I think there are a couple things at work. Number one, I like the fact that this pay-per-view was under 3 hours, right? A PLE that comes in under 3 hours is really good. In this environment where we can get long pay-per-views and PLEs, I like that they're valuing our time in that way. I also think what 5 matches does is it gives each of those matches a chance to cook. This is the takeover formula. We loved NXT TakeOver, and we loved it because those matches got to cook. We knew we weren't just going to get a 3-minute squash. We knew we weren't going to try to just fit matches on. And so there's this interesting balance that needs to happen. You have AEW, who's going to put 14 matches on a card on a pay-per-view and do a 5-hour pay-per-view. To that end, I want to honor AEW for the fact that All In's major, the main card literally went 4 hours. I was shocked. I was fully prepared for 5 hours on the main show. And when it was 4, I was in complete shock You said don't honor them.
Don't honor them because if Wembley didn't have a curfew, they would have went. They would have went all the way. So
got you. Now I will say that the 0 Hour having a 16-man tag team match was a bit much.
Nonsense.
But whatever it is. But again, I think what WWE is using is that takeover formula, which then says you have to work as a wrestler to get onto the PLE, right? Like we're just not handing PLE appearances to everybody. And I think that's important because if you're ultimately asking people to shell out their money, which by the way, I don't know that people caught this idea that Bash in Berlin was the largest grossing arena show in history. I don't know that people understands what that means, right? What that means is these people spent more money for a ticket than anybody else because at 11,000 people, they've been in larger arenas. They've been in larger arenas this year, but they didn't charge as much. So that's another story for another day. The point is I like this length of a PLE. I like the fact that, the PLEs now feel exclusive, that you have to work hard to get there. And when you get there, you're going to do work that's worthy of our time, our attention, and of our money.
For sure. You mentioned TakeOver. Let's switch our heads to NXT. No Mercy, of course. A lot less predictable. I think there are some things that we didn't expect. One kind of came before the PLE itself, which then even moved into the PLE as well. That being Zachary Wentz becoming the X Division champion. Had everyone in a frenzy, asking 10 million questions. I asked all those 10 million questions in our own group chat.
Yes.
Was Wentz going to defend the X Division championship? Could Wesley win, take it away, blah, blah, blah. But I think one question that I asked, I didn't get an answer to, but I did in the end on the show was Zachary Wentz going to beat Wesley? I almost said Desmond Xavier. Wow. And of course, I know. And of course he did. I did ask the question, would that be detrimental to Wesley moving forward? Mex, what are your thoughts in terms of this win? Is it detrimental to Wesley? Are we going to see them clash again? Will the X Division Championship come into play in any way, shape, or form if we do?
I think it very much can come into play. I don't think it's detrimental to Wes though. I think this can only make him maybe spiral more because the guy that you're kind of blaming all of this for has now come and beaten you in your backyard. So it's only going to make you spiral into more madness. Maybe eventually the play is he goes over to TNA and wins that title and parades it around on WWE TV and stuff for a while, or does double duty over in TNA. Maybe it's the preparing the kind of 1-for-1 situation, because I think we've spoken about maybe very soon Joe Hendry becoming NXT champion. So maybe this is NXT gearing up to make Wes X Division champion in for to make it similar or something. But no, I think it's positive. It completely ruined my predictions that I had in our Discord. We have predictions for pay-per-views. I thought, Wesley will win, but then of course, like you say, when Zachary Wentz is now a champion, it's like the night before. Like, is he gonna go and lose the next day? I thought he would, but I was wrong. So. My pen didn't work. I took a day off booking the show.
We also saw Obafemi, retain his North American Championship. Obafemi is now officially, I think it was just before the day as well, actually, officially the second longest NXT North American champion in history. I think as of this day, he is only 33 days away from equaling or beating Wesley's record run as well.
Already?
Really?
Yeah, even I
no
thought the same thing. Yes,
way.
it is.
Wow.
It is literally.
Wow.
So do we think it's going to happen? Is there going to be a curveball thrown in and we're not going to get it, or are we just going to get the dominant ruler of NXT kind of cemented as the longest reigning NXT North American champion?
I think he beats
Gerard,
it.
you're shocked. Answer me. Answer me.
I think he beats it personally. But I from that match against Tony D, I think he definitely found himself in a fight. That's how they posed it. At times I was literally like wondering, oh my god, he's gonna lose this here. But he came through in the end. But yeah, I think we're definitely kind of winding down now in the way they posed this last one.
Yeah, I'm finding myself in shock right now because it did not feel like it's been 237 days for Obafemi as the North American champion, and that he's literally 32 days away. That's like wow. So to that end, I absolutely think Obafemi beats this record and becomes the greatest North American champion of all time. And if my memory serves me correctly, wasn't Wesley's shot against Obafemi kind of one and done? Like if you lose, you don't get another shot at this championship, which means that Wesley can't even come in and fight to defend his record. Now he might show up to interfere to try to stop that record, because I could see in terms of the spiral, that's the one thing he has left. The longest reigning North American champion. So
true.
This gets very interesting. We're talking 32 days. So we're talking obviously passing the debut on the CW, which is in about 4 weeks. Whew. Yeah. Wow. That's pretty awesome. And I will say this. I don't know that we realize how good Obafemi is, because Obafemi made me care about Tony D'Angelo. And I've not cared about Tony D'Angelo at
all.
At all. This match right here, I was like, wait, this is the best Tony D'Angelo has ever looked. And oh my God, he's not. I have not cared about Tony D until this match.
You're not a fan.
I mean, no. Now I enjoyed the faction war that he had with Legato. Like that was great, but everything else I could do without Tony D. So shout out to Obafemi for making me care, because take it or leave it. So yeah, Obafemi, longest reigning North American champion. I could go for that. Greatest North American champion. I could go for that. Please, ma'am, please, sir, don't let in the future Tony D'Angelo be the one to take that title from him. I will not be a happy camper.
And you know what? I completely agree. And I think it's more so to do with what they've had him doing. You know, I remember when he had the match against Ilya Dragunov for the NXT Championship, and I was just like, huh? How?
On Stand and Deliver at that. Like, what?
Nah. When you had the likes of a Dijak still running rampant and whatnot, of course, you know, Dijak ended up in the North American Championship match, but you know, he could have easily been put in that championship match, and we would have been sold and excited for it and on all the rest of it. I certainly would have been more so than Tony D. The whole Heritage Cup thing, I feel as though it was actually a little bit beneath him and made me care less about what he was doing and what was going on. And I think it went on for too long. I'm glad he's moved up towards, you know, the North American Championship and had the match that he had, because as Gerard said, I now kind of care again about what he does and what he can do. So it's not about not necessarily being a fan. I just lost interest, or wondered why he was there or why he was not doing more. That's what it is. Wondering why he wasn't doing more. But yeah, apart from that, you know, I think the group that he has with him, the faction that he has, have amazing potential. Every single one of them in that group can be amazing. I think they just need to do a little bit more. And I think this is the start of me kind of wanting to see that again. And yeah, I've not really been a fan. Mex, have you been a fan of Tony D?
Yeah, I think he's all right. Like, I think he's all right. I enjoy the family stuff. It's a bit of like hangover from the 2.0 time, but I think it's not bad, sort of thing. And I think he's a good wrestler. Like, maybe it's his opponents that make him look good. You know, that might be the sentiment. But like this particular match, I thought he looked really good. There's some of that Heritage Cup run. I felt he looked really good as well and believable. Yeah, I mean, there must be something as to why he hasn't ascended to the top of the card, with the likes of absences from Bron Breakker and Carmelo Hayes. You know, I think it's fair to say something like that. But yeah, I do think he's good. Yeah, I like the D'Angelo family. I think it's all right.
Yeah. You know, again, it's not me kind of dismissing the talent, but more so what they had them doing. As I said, I think Tony D'Angelo is good. The faction is good, but I think they've kind of just been on this you know, very mundane run. Maybe I think that's what it is more than anything. In terms of other matches that happened at No Mercy, we saw a phenomenal showing from Kalani Jordan. But the one that really stood out in terms of the ladies was Jada Parker. I mean, there may be a few, but I don't think the general consensus was expecting us to see the level of match that we did see between Jada Parker and Roxanne Perez. Not taking anything away from Jada, but I think everyone was surprised by, you know, she exceeded expectations in terms of the match and how great the match was and how it was revered as the match of the night on the evening as well by so many people. Gerard, what are your thoughts in terms of Jada Parker and that match itself? Before the night, did you expect that level of match or that level of showing beforehand?
It's interesting. As soon as she won the, you know, gauntlet match to become the #1 contender, it immediately took me back to TakeOver Portland when it was Rhea Ripley against Bianca Belair. And this was that match to me. It was, I don't expect Jada Parker to win the championship, but this match is going to show the world why Jada should be in the conversation. And I mean, from the promos leading to it, to that slap around the world, which, my God, I mean, we got the Rock slap and we got Jada slap. And I could argue that Jada slap was crazier than the Rock slap. To even how she came out to the ring Sunday night. The only one that night who kind of talked her way to the ring, you know, which you would expect from a Roxanne. That happened with Jada, and she came in and she owned the moment. She clearly was not afraid being in front of probably more people than she's been in front of in a wrestling context. And she owns this. She showed us why she belongs in the championship conversation. And I don't think that there's anybody that's going to argue, oh man, she should have won the match yet. I mean, she's only been in for a year. But I think when we start coming around to say, I don't know, stand and deliver, we could have a situation on our hands with Jada Parker holding somebody's gold, whether it's the North American Championship or the Women's Championship. She has got the goods, and I think that match was her coming out party. No questions asked.
I think that's definitely telling in terms of, within a few months, we'll see Jada Parker holding gold. And for me, I believe it's more than likely going to be that North American, the Women's North American Championship. George, you mentioned her not being in front of that many people in a wrestling context. But Jada, in the interview on Tuesday's NXT, made it very clear that her being in front of that many people was nothing new to her. Mex, do you feel as though, that definitely helped and helps her in terms of her performance and performing in front of that amount of?
Yeah, I think.
I'm back. Do you think that helps her in terms?
Yeah. I think it definitely will give her the advantage of wrestling in front of that many people. If you've done things like having football matches in front of a packed crowd and stuff like that. But I think more so than anything, I think we've said this time and time again. She's almost jumped the queue. Like I don't know what's the inner workings of NXT, but I know when they kind of started putting her on TV, they probably weren't expecting this trajectory so soon at this point. And her attitude, her charisma, her characteristics in that sense kind of have brought her to the dance, in my opinion. And it was always a thing where, all right, the wrestling will catch up, but the wrestling will catch up with reps, sort of thing. Even so, to the point of this match where I thought that, okay, well, I don't expect her to win, but this is a good position for her to be in this early in her career. I mean, give or take, she has been on the main show, like graduated past NXT Level Up, if you like, maybe coming up to a year now. Like, I don't think it's even been maybe that long. But then she performed in this match, performed while selling a rib injury as well, by the way. She sold all the offense that Roxanne gave her. She had her moments as well where, she could have nearly won or had to take it to the next level, but couldn't because of the injury. For me, like, it's definitely like coming out party levels, but again, I'll always harp on just how good this system is, the NXT system, the Performance Center system. Like, she just looked so comfortable. She didn't look like somebody. And this is someone that, if you remember, their first PLE match was that 6-person tag, I think it was. Can't necessarily remember who it was against now, but yeah. And it kind of fell apart. Not because of her necessarily, but that entire match just wasn't really up to scratch. And she's somewhat even, I know she's still OTM, but she's the leader of the gang. Like, them man now that debuted before her are chasing her. Like, she's gone clear. She doesn't need them, sort of thing. And, wrestling Roxanne Perez, and just a word to Roxanne Perez, that woman is so clear. Like, I don't know who is her age mates in wrestling, like her actual age mates, but she is superior to every single one of them, man and woman. Like, she is too good for her age. Like, it doesn't even make sense. And obviously, they've been kind of feeding her the roster to set up for where we are now, with the likes of Julia debuting, Stephanie Vaquer's probably not too far away. But yeah, back to Jada Parker. I just think it was just an all-round very good experiment, very good result of an experiment, sort of thing. And, I think definitely by stand and deliver time, if it's not there, then maybe sometime middle of next year, we're looking at a North American champion at the very least. Or is he gone again?
Uh-oh. Man.
Well.
Yeah. All right.
He's just moving around, but
Yeah, I can't tell what's
Mate,
happening there. He's shaking his
lads,
head.
back.
There he
it's a bad day. It's a bad day in the office. It's a bad day in the office, mate. But you know what? You know, I think it might actually be this. This is actually true. There's been a storm warning the last couple of days. I think it might actually be brewing, and it's messing up my Wi-Fi. That's the only sense I can make, apart from Tony Khan also messing with my Wi-Fi as he does quite often. But yeah, apart from that, you know, it is what it is. Let's move very quickly. The last thing I wanted to talk about, why have I completely forgotten that? Oh man, yes. Oh, Trick Williams, of course. Trick Williams was the special guest referee in the main event, of course, between Ethan Page and Joe Hendry. Of course, when Trick was coming out and they were chatting, "Whoop that Trick," in my head, I was hearing 1, 2, Trick. Almost like 1, 2, 3 because he's a referee. Anyway, that match went down. It happened, and we saw Pete Dunne get involved. Pete Dunne seems to be absolutely everywhere, getting involved in people's matches. What are we expecting in terms of Trick Williams and Pete Dunne? Has it captured your imagination enough to feel as though this is something that will elevate Trick eventually, or even Pete Dunne himself? Of course, we see Pete Dunne within the whole Intercontinental title thing as well. Like, what are we doing with one, Pete Dunne, and 2, Trick Williams? Gerard, what are your thoughts when it comes to these two men?
I think Pete Dunne is good for Trick Williams because, much like Ilya Dragunov, he is that veteran that Trick can learn from. He is also that veteran that can really elevate the cachet of Trick Williams. It's interesting because it also keeps Trick Williams busy out of the title picture as well. I think the Trick Williams title run taught us that he's got the charisma, but he really does need the in-ring work to be at a championship level. So you put him up against one of the longest reigning champions of the modern era in Pete Dunne. And so I think it makes sense. I know they've got a match scheduled for tonight. I don't know where that match goes. Trick is due a win, but I don't know if that win happens tonight. I don't know if they are building up for perhaps, what could happen for October 1st in their launch on the CW. They've got a big arena show that night. So I don't know if they're leading to that. I do think that the diss track that Trick Williams just dropped is an interesting little rub in all of this. There are multiple opinions on that. I do think it's cool that so much of the NXT roster was involved in the video. That's really cool. The idea that Pete Dunne tweeted that for any of the NXT trainees, it's on site. That is absolutely hilarious to me. I didn't know that Pete Dunne could talk like that. All of that to say, I think this gets really interesting really, really quickly. And what they do tonight will hopefully continue to build more interest in this story.
In no way am I surprised by the way Pete Dunne is talking. In terms of the area that he's from in Birmingham, I'm not surprised at all. They just like to fight for no reason whatsoever. See you, that's it. It's on site, literally. So I used to stay away from that area when I was growing up. So I'm not surprised at all.
Okay.
No, very, very real. Very real. Mex, do you think in any way with Pete Dunne getting involved in the main event, of course, Trick Williams still kind of having his beef with Ethan Page? I'm sure Joe Hendry's not going anywhere anytime soon. In any way, can we possibly see a multi-person match for the NXT Championship come the first or second week of NXT being on the CW?
What did you see? Just
4 minutes ago. I'm just reading this tweet from Sean Ross Sapp. 4 minutes ago. Here's what it says. This is Sean Ross Sapp. Odyssey Jones was removed from WWE TV when domestic violence allegations came to light, Fightful has learned. We've not heard of an arrest or charges being pressed in relation to the situation. We've reached out to WWE for comment as well as clarification on his status. Talent has not been informed of the situation. That was just tweeted literally 4 minutes ago.
Horrible. Oh, there you have it, people. We were asking ourselves at the beginning of the show what it could be. I mean, obviously still to, I guess, be confirmed to some degree, but there's no smoke without fire if that's going to be attached to your
that
name.
would totally explain why he's been taken off and why it's been very quiet, to obviously investigate what's been going on.
What a shame. What a shame. That
yeah, very sudden.
That might be him done. That might be him done because he is 4 weeks. He hasn't got a catalog of anything. He wasn't even in NXT for long enough for everyone to, you know, fall in love with him and all of that kind of stuff. He might be done. Like,
and especially not that they're all that connected. I mean,
we've seen a very similar thing with.
No, go ahead.
No, carry on. Sorry, Joe, carry on.
I was going to say, with what we've just
I was going to say,
we've
seen.
Go. Okay. All right. Well, with what we've seen recently with Nikki Bella, aka Nikki Garcia, and that situation that has happened, you know, and I know while she's not signed to WWE right now, that, you know, they're not going to play games with domestic violence. I mean, we know this. Ironically, Zachary Wentz is just getting back on WWE TV, given what happened, or at least the allegations a couple of years ago. So this is not a good situation at all. We knew it had to be something, but for this to drop right now is wild.
I was going to say we've seen a very similar thing with Rich Swann in the past in terms of allegations and what that turned into for him when he was in WWE. He was, a cruiserweight champion. He was on 205 Live every single week and all the rest of it. All of a sudden, boom, you know, he was gone out of wrestling for almost a year, kind of, you know, made his way back in. But again, even just recently, you know, he's been charged something to do with drug possession or drug taking, something along those lines, and has also been, you know, suspended from TNA. I think that happened just last week. So yeah, when allegations come around, it's unfortunate that it's guilty before proven innocent, but I can't think of any other way for anyone to, you know, deal with that type of thing, or that type any type of those situations in any other way. Yeah, as Mick said, I think it's probably done for him, because I can't see why, you know, WWE would feel as though you know, they can't do without him in that sense. So, man, yeah,
poor, very poor.
Yeah,
crazy stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of it in terms of confirmed information, any details if we do hear of any, and all the rest of it. But any type of domestic violence can never be good. It never seems to be good. And we've seen redemption stories, as you mentioned, Gerard. You know, Zachary Wentz has made his way back onto WWE TV in a way, but it took a very long time. I believe for the most part, You know, those allegations were either untrue or exaggerated or something along those lines. But it still took a very, very long time, for him to kind of reach back to where he is now. I may be saying it's way too early, and not knowing any details in terms of how he's perceived in WWE. But I can't see how Odyssey Jones, who only just debuted less than a month ago, will find his way back there, if at all. Zachary Wentz kind of had a lot of things going for him, behind him, you know what I mean, all the rest of it. He had a lot of backing in terms of, you know, his stature and how people saw him just as a person and all the rest of it. As I said earlier, you know, whether Odyssey Jones has that type of thing behind him, not quite sure. So I'm not, it could be the end. What don't want to see, and I don't know whether I'm upset that he's not going to find his way back, whether even if we find out the allegations are untrue. But if we find out the allegations are true, it's the upset and the anger of that happening as well. Oh, very, very difficult situation. Very, very difficult situation and news to hear. So bad. Wow.
It's a shame. It's
wow.
a shame.
Like our time is gone, and I don't really want to end on this.
Can you hear me?
Well,
yeah, go on.
Yeah, well, I'll just say this to end on a bright note. All Caribbean Wrestling had a great tour in Jamaica this weekend. We had a great show called Jam Slam, took place in Kingston, Jamaica. Lots of fun. 2 title changes happening there, including brand new tag team champions, as the New Nation defeated the Kentish Brothers to regain the All Caribbean Wrestling tag team championships. Lots of great moments in this show. And so I look forward to when it is released for you guys to be able to see. But I can tell you what's up next for All Caribbean Wrestling, and that is roughly 6 weeks' time. All Caribbean Wrestling heads back to Nassau, Bahamas. Fight for Paradise is the show. October the 19th is the date. I want to make sure I have that date right, because the last thing I want to do is have the date wrong. But yeah, it's October the 19th. It's going to be exceptional. Can't wait. I'm hearing a lot of really good things. I know we're in a larger venue already because of the amazing turnout that happened back in June. So stay connected to All Caribbean Wrestling to figure out and find out all that's happening for the Fight for Paradise show coming up on October the 19th.
Phenomenal stuff. I didn't want to end on a bad note, but I know Mex had some final remarks. Mex, did you want to say anything more, or are we ending it?
Yeah, let's wrap it up. It's been a good last 2 weeks for Black wrestling, seeing ourselves in good position. We didn't even talk about Mercedes Moné basically wrestling herself in Wembley. So yeah, it's been decent, and long may it continue. All the positive news for our Black Stars.
For sure. Yeah, Mercedes was actually phenomenal on that night. Yeah, she's gonna continue doing great stuff. I can see it happening. With all that said, our time is up. I just feel weird right now, but anyway, this has been WrstlXtra. You've been watching on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see when this guy Mex puts out all of his reactions and things to WWE, AEW, everything else in between, as well as a few interviews and exclusives that he can find himself getting every now and again. You can also see Mex with the Mandem on the Wrestling's YouTube channel as well. Like and subscribe to see when those guys put out their weekly show, as well as other content as well. Find Mex directly on Instagram, WrestleManiac UK, WrestleManiac.uk on X. And also find this guy, Gerard Bonner. Just say his name, you'll see him because he'll make his appearance. You may find him in Jamaica. You may find him in the Bahamas. You may find him in North Carolina. You may find Atlanta. Anywhere else. He hasn't come to London yet. I don't know why, but he'll be here.
I'd love
he'll
to
be somewhere. You can you can find him on all spaces Bonafide, also on his own show, The Faction Show. You can also find him on a Women's Wrestling Talk live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can also see him doing his great stuff, his commentary and broadcasting for all Caribbean wrestling. The Nightmare Factory, IWE. They cut me off because Gerard does too much, and they didn't want to hear me say everything that he does.
They want to hold a black man down like WWE.
It's clear that a storm is coming, and I'm not talking about Jade Cargill.
Jade.
Oh Lord, listen, let's just end this here. I am a Dazzle. Find me on all spaces, Black Wrestling Alliance. And if my internet decides to work next week, you will find me here next week as well with the guys on WrstlXtra. Guys, I'm out. I've had enough. Peace.
See you later.